All right, intro micro students, my fabulous team micro. This is the second lecture for chapter 7, the theory of the firm, looking at a little bit of math behind the production process and the costs of production in this case. And so this lecture, we're going to be going through that handout that I posted under modules. Make sure that you're following modules. I've posted a bunch of stuff in the modules. And in fact, I've opened up another module just for exam 2 prep. Like I did with exam 1, I made a separate module for the prep where I will post the answers to homeworks. I posted a review sheet already. I posted the homework 3 or the homework 6 in this case, which is the practice exam number 2 is already posted. You can already get started on that. So even though the due date for that is a little far out still, maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks out actually, I think, is the exam. So check the due dates, but you can get started on that practice exam at any time. You can do all the marginal utility and utility questions and elasticity questions. You can knock those out so that when it comes time to actually submit that practice exam, you only have a little bit left that has to do with production and costs. So just some advice in terms of getting stuff done as we make the final push here to the finish line. So anyways, let me get to that cost curves example. The best way to learn economics is to do economics. So I have this example. I'm going to share my screen now and go over to that example. So hopefully I can find it here. And there you go. And so this is an example, assuming that we're opening a flower shop in town here in Cheney, for example. And you've identified that there's a certain demand for eagle-themed floral arrangements, red, blue, black, and white arrangements for tailgates, moms and dads weekends, graduation, holiday parties, etc., and so on. So you have this little flower shop that we're opening up. What might be some examples of fixed costs? So I want you to think about what is the difference between fixed costs and variable costs, and not just memorize definitions. I think I've said that from the get-go. When you're reading the chapter and you're taking notes, don't write down the definitions. Those are already right there in the book. You're going to have that with you. Write down the examples. That helps you so much more, so that when it says on a multiple choice question, all of the following are examples of fixed costs, you can look at your list of fixed cost examples and say, oh, I'm looking for something that's like these examples. That's going to be a lot more helpful than just memorizing a definition of a fixed cost. But the definition of a fixed cost is a cost that does not change with the level of output, does not depend on Q. Okay, so a fixed cost is a cost that you're going to incur regardless if you produce 0 units, if you make 1 unit, or if you produce 1,000 units. That total fixed cost is not going to change. Okay, so examples of fixed costs, in this case, let me relate it to a flower shop. It's going to be your rent. So think about, the flower shops might have been shut down due to COVID-19 restrictions. So even though the flower shop cannot open its doors, cannot serve customers, right, had to send their employees home, even that, they still have to pay their rent. Okay, so every month the landlord is going to want his rent check, and they pay the same amount of rent regardless of if the store is open and if the store is booming, or maybe it's the summer months and the students are all gone and they do much slower business. They have to lay some people off. They don't do nearly as many flower arrangements or whatever. It's still the same rent every month. Does that make sense? So it's fixed. It does not depend on quantity. So some examples of fixed costs in this case would be the rent. It could be the cost of a refrigerator to store your items in. It's big items, big ticket items, your capital, your cash register, okay? That is a cost that you incur at once, and that's it, right? Typically, fixed costs on a monthly basis are recurring things. However, part of your utilities might be a base portion. You're going to pay $50, and then if you exceed so many kilowatt hours or something on your electricity, you'll pay more. So whatever part is fixed is the fixed cost. The variable part, depending on if you had a really busy month or a really slow month, that variable portion could change, and that's then the variable cost. Okay, so capital things, fixed cost, storage, let's say refrigerator. I spelled that wrong or correctly. Something like that. I'm trying to think. What else is something like a bill that you would pay up front right? And then it doesn't depend on your uses. Now, your electric bill is absolutely going to vary if you have the lights on a lot, if you're running a lot of equipment. In a busier month, you would expect your electric bill to go up. In a slower month, I noticed that my electric bill goes up. And same thing with heating. In the winter months, you're going to need more than in the summer months. So those aren't necessarily fixed costs. They vary with use, okay? So those will be variable. Anyway, so those are some big ticket fixed cost items, okay, that are going to, if you're running a restaurant, it's the cost of the chairs, right? Regardless of if 10 people come to eat at your restaurant or 100 people come, it's the same chairs that are sitting there, okay? All right, on the other hand, variable costs. These are the things that I'm using in the course of running my flower shop business, and the things that I sell or I use more of when production increases, and I use less of them when production decreases. So they're very dependent on quantity. So variable costs might be the vases, definitely the flowers, right? Definitely the workers, right? When things slow down over the summer, I lay some people off, or I have them come in less. Or if things get really, really busy for homecoming weekend, I'll bring more workers on board. So definitely variable. Your labor costs are often variable. Back to the fixed cost. A fixed cost might be if you have to have an attorney who's constantly present and you have to carry that utility, or that accountant maybe. Think of an accountant that you keep on your staff, but you use them much heavily during tax season or something. But then the other times of the year they don't do much, but you still keep them on staff. And you still have to pay that salary. And it doesn't depend on, they're the accountant. They're not dependent upon how many widgets or flower arrangements you crunched out, okay? So some things like that could be a fixed cost. Maybe add that. It's kind of an interesting thought, right? Your accountant slash bookkeeper. Okay. Anyways, your variable costs are going to be the ribbons, right? The packaging, and so on. Okay, all that stuff is going to be your variable inputs for making your displays, your flower arrangements, all your variable costs. All right, just so you have a sense of what are fixed costs, what kinds of things are variable costs. Okay, so when you get down here, whenever your quantity is 0, but you still have costs, those must be fixed costs. So here, when I'm looking at this table, our goal now is to fill out this table and then to plot these, to look at them, just like we did with production. We're going to fill in our table and then graph them, okay? In this case, all you're given, look at what you're given. You're given you're given the output, but then in the rest of the columns, for all the different types of costs, all you need is basically like one number, okay, per row, and we can fill in all the rest. Isn't that cool? That's all you've got. One number per row, and we can do this. That is so cool, understanding how these are related. So when you get this, it may be something like this, or it could be I could just randomly just fill in one number per each row and ask you to fill in the entire table. And that's what I often do for exams, so be ready. All right, so how do I know this total cost when my quantity is 0? Whenever quantity is 0, variable cost must be 0. There are no variable costs if you haven't even made anything yet. Okay, you haven't even started to make, you haven't even taken your order for your flower arrangement yet. Okay, so how can you have any costs yet? Okay, your workers haven't even showed up yet. Okay, all right, so can't even pay them yet. They haven't produced anything. So in this case, whenever quantity is 0, it must be fixed costs. Now, total costs are equal to, and all these formulas are in your chapter, by the way. Total cost, and again, people will say, you have to memorize all these formulas. There's a lot of formulas. Don't memorize formulas, but in fact, understand relationships, okay? So let's look at the totals. The total fixed cost, the total variable cost, and the total cost. You combine the two. The fixed plus the variable is going to equal the total. So total cost is equal to total variable plus total fixed. As long as you can figure out any two, you can solve for the third, right? And so in this case, since I know total variables is 0 and total cost is 40, my fixed cost must be $40. If I can type it in. Okay. And I'm not going to worry about the dollar sign. I'm just going to put the numbers in at this point. They all are going to have dollars in front of them. When we get to averages, the average fixed, the average variable, and the average total, to take an average, You simply divide the total by quantity, and quantity is here, output. Okay, so quantity is my first column on the left, how many floral arrangements, okay? So to take an average, you don't need to memorize, oh, hey, average fixed cost is equal to total fixed cost divided by quantity. That sounds super complicated. All you gotta do, total fixed cost divided by quantity. If you wanna find average variable, ding, 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 all you gotta do is take total variable and divide by quantity. You don't need to memorize the formula. Total variable cost, or average variable cost equals total variable cost divided by quantity, and so on. And conversely, if you have the average and you need to find the total, well, if you know that something averages $2, and that's 10 units, 2 times 10 is gonna be $20 total, right? Okay, so make sure that you can go back and forth between averages and totals. So to go from total to average, divide by quantity. To go from average to total, multiply by quantity. So it's a relationship. So you don't have to write out a whole other set of formulas that says total variable cost equals AVC times Q. You just know, because you will have done this so much, you will have practiced it so much, that it would just become second nature to you, that if I have the average to get the total, I just multiply by Q. Okay? To go from total down to average, I divide by Q. I just reverse it. See? Easy peasy. Okay? Sometimes students get so stressed out about memorizing all of these formulas. And it's not even a memorization thing, because you guys are going to have the formula sheets right in front of you, but it's about finding the right formula. No. You shouldn't be, when you see a question, be looking for the formula. You should be asking, am I going total to average or average to total? Piece of cake. When you're going marginal, we already did marginal in the production story. Marginal cost is going to be the change in total costs divided by the change in quantity. Easy peasy, okay? So you don't need to memorize formulas. It's about understanding relationships between total, average, and marginal variables, okay? All right, so that's going to help you. Once you get on board with that, that's going to help you. It's a lot like the elasticity, where the elasticity formulas were all very, very similar, right? As long as you got that midpoint formula and you know the methodology, you can switch the names of the variables a little, and it didn't really change anything. You didn't have to memorize all those elasticity formulas, right? Oh my gosh, there's so many formulas coming at you. No, just understand the relationships. That's what I would say. All right, so here we go. Now the really cool thing, once you have fixed costs, and this is how you solve these problems. One of the first things I do when I'm filling out these tables is I find whatever the fixed costs are, total fixed costs, it's going to be constant. Doesn't matter if I make 1 unit, if I make 2 units, if I make 50 units, if I make 10 million units, it's still going to be 40. So what you do when you get to here is you go, hey, this is easy. Whoops, and you don't go to the next column. Keep going down, down, down into 40. This is hard to do. Anyways, you get the idea. You fill in the fixed cost, total fixed cost, all the way down. And so doesn't matter if I'm making 10 units, if I'm making no units, my fixed costs are 40. Now I have all the variable costs. So I've got total fixed, total variable. All I do is I add those to get total. There's only 2 types of costs, fixed and variable. So I'm not missing anything. So I add those to get the total, to sum them. So in this case, 40 plus 10 is 50, right? In this case, 40 plus 18, I think is 58, right? And then 40 and 25. These are really super. I can do super easy. I can do these without my calculator. Eventually, I'm going to have to get to my calculator when I start doing the averages. But for now, and also you might want to double check your calculator. It's super easy to make mistakes. You'll see I make them occasionally. Hang on. 40 and 60 is 100. Oops. I think that's 115, 40 plus 75. So I'm just adding the second and the third column together. I think I'm doing this okay. Backspace, backspace, down. All right, so now look how much I've done already. Now I have all my totals. Now, to go from totals to averages, all I do is I take these numbers and divide by the first column, the left column, the quantity. So average fixed, I'm going to take my 40, I'm going to divide it by 0. I can't divide by 0. It's undefined. It's not 0. It's undefined. Division by 0 is undefined, okay? 0 divided by something is 0. 0 divided by 1, 0 divided by 10, those are zeros. But something divided by 0 is undefined. So don't put a 0 in there, you'd be wrong. You learned that in your algebra class, I'm sure. Okay, anyway, so here we go. In this case, if I take my 40, I'm just taking 40 each time and dividing it by my Q. So when the quantity is 1, it's 40. When quantity is 2, 40 divided by 2 is 20. 40 divided by 3, 13.33, right? Hopefully I haven't needed the calculator yet. 40 divided by 4, woo, I could do that one. 40 divided by 5, I know my multiplication tables, that's 8. 40 divided by 6. All right, let me see if I can do this one. It's going to be less than 8, so it's going to be, let me get the calculator out just to make sure I don't want to lie to you guys on this one. It's not as simple. I have an instinct of what it is. 6.67. So 6.67. And then 40 divided by 7. 40 divided by 7, 5.71. And students will often ask, how many decimal places? In economics, I like to go 2 decimal places. Think cents, right? $1.98, something like that, okay? So typically, we round to 2 decimal places. If you want to go more precise and include more decimal places, that would be sufficient as well, okay? So by all means, there's no hard and fast rule. Usually take your clue from what the rest of the data looks like as to what level and how high the units are in some cases. If you're talking millions, you certainly don't need to round to 2 decimal places, okay? Anyways, so 40 divided by 8, I know that one, that one's 5. 40 divided by 9, let me get my calculator out again. I'm doing this over here, 40 divided by 9, 4.44. And again, I'm intuitively looking to make sure that these are all falling. Average fixed costs will fall everywhere. It will continue to fall. It will, at the limit, approach 0. So it'll become asymptotic to the horizontal axis when you draw this, okay? And it falls pretty quickly, actually. You'd be surprised. All right, 10. 40 divided by 10 is 4. There we go, not 10. So I take the $40 divided by my 10 units, and the average fixed cost is 4. So there we go. That's now $1 and cent. It's like $40, $20, $13.33. Okay, for each of the 3 units that we can attach to the 3rd unit, we can say, okay, it embodies $13.33 worth of fixed cost. All right, average variable cost. You cannot divide by 0, so I'm going to put undefined. I'm going to do the same thing for the average totals and the marginals as well. Can't divide by zeros, so let's just leave those like that. All right. Then over here, average variable. I'm going to take the variable cost column, the 3rd column, just the variable cost, total variable cost, and I'm going to divide by the Q. So the first one, my total variable is 10. My quantity is 1, so 10 divided by 1 is 10. The second one, I'm going to take 18 as the variable cost, and I have 2 units to spread that 18 over, so that's $9 per unit. The third one, 25 divided by 3, believe that's 8.33, right? And then 35 divided by 4, it's going to be close to 9, because 9 would be 36. Give me 1 second, clear. 35 divided by 9, I want to get the decimal right. Oh, 3.89. So here, 3.89. Here, wait, that's not right. I did something wrong. Now see, and then I paused and I went, that doesn't make sense. Let me try that one more time. 35 divided by 4. I divided by 9, I think. 8.75. Whew, it's a lot better. See how I catch my own mistakes? That reality check. All right, when I got to here, I would have realized something was amiss. And I'm going to take the 47, and I'm going to divide it by 5. $47 of variable cost divided by 5 units. It's a per unit cost of 9.4. Okay. Now I've got $60 of variable cost to be divided over 6 units. Well, that one's pretty easy. Okay. I'm going to stop for a second. Notice what's going on with my average variable cost. Whereas my average fixed cost fell everywhere, my average variable costs, they fell 10, 9, 8.3, and then started to go back up again. So it reaches a minimum and then starts to rise. 8.75, 9.4, 10. So your hypothesis would be that the 7th unit is going to be higher than 10. And let's see if we're right. 75 divided by 7, yes, I can tell right away that's going to be better than 10. 10.71. And then the next one, 95 variable cost divided by 8. 11.875. Yep. The next one, 120 divided by 9 units, 13.33. And then 150 divided by 10, I can do that. That's 15 in my head. Cool. All right. So there we go. It falls, hits a minimum, and then rises. That's that U shape that you saw in the textbook, or the average variable cost. Now, to get the average total cost, there's 2 ways that you can do this. And again, relationships, okay? Just as we know fixed plus variable is total, we can do average fixed plus average variable will get me average total. Okay, so let's try that. So 40 for 1 unit, 40 plus 10 should give me 50. Another way to find average total is just like we did for average fixed and average variable. If I take this total column here and I divide it by Q over here, that should also give me ATC. Let's make sure that works. So for 1, my total cost is 50 divided by 1. Oh, look, it's 50. So 2 ways. You can take total cost, divide by Q, or you can just add the 2 columns, average fixed plus average variable. I'm going to do the adding. I like the 2 numbers are right next to each other. And then I'm doing division on my calculator. I can add really fast. 20 plus 9 is 29, right? 13.33 plus 18.33, 21.66, right? And then the next one, 18.75, right? And then the next one, 17.4. Hopefully I'm not making any glaring mistakes. You guys will point them out to me if I do and realize that everybody makes mistakes. 16.67. But always double check your work. All right, 5.71 and 10.71. That's going to be 16.42, isn't it? I believe so. Again, I'm not needing my divider. 16.88. See, I haven't used the calculator to divide because addition is simpler for me. 17.77. Isn't that interesting? And then this one is 19. So there we go. Look how fast we have filled in nearly all of the table just by understanding the basic relationships, okay? Now let's go to this marginal cost. Change in total cost divided by change in quantity. Keep in mind, this is a very simple example, and I've kept the quantity changes to ones. On your homeworks, they may be 10, 20, 30, 100, 200, 300, or even 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. You're going to have to divide by the change in quantity. If it's 10 to 20, for example, you're going to divide the change in total cost by 10, the increments of 10 that it went from 10 to 20. Okay? But in this case, so change in total cost from 40 to 50, so let's do the first one, that's going to be 10. All right, the next one from 50 to 58, that's going to be an 8. From 58 to 65, that one's going to be a 7. 65 to 75, I believe that one's a 10. Let's do the next one, 75 to 87. I believe that's a 12, right? 87 to 100 looks like 13. Let me stop. Notice the trend. Notice what's going on with marginal cost. It's going 10, 8, 7. It fell. hit a minimum at 7 and is starting to rise again. 7, 10, 12, 13. So my prediction would be that for 7 units of output, my marginal cost is going to be above 13. Let me check. From 100 to 115, indeed, that's a 15. It's the change in total cost. So the change from 115 to 135, the 8th unit added $20 to my total cost. The 9th unit made me go from 135 to 165. That made me increase 25. And then lastly, my 10th unit jumped my total cost from 160 to 190 for an increase of 30. So notice after the 7, the numbers all started to rise. That's that fishhook shape that we saw in the production example. Using the fertilizer example, the marginal cost fell, hit a min, and then started rising indefinitely. It had that fishhook shape to it, okay? So there we go, ta-da, we're done. Now what you can and should do, I'm not gonna waste your time. What you should do is go plot these. What you're gonna do is you're gonna plot all the totals on one graph. Fixed, variable, and totals all on one graph, okay? And then on another graph, these other ones, the average and the marginals can all go on the same graph. So plot a separate set of graphs. When you're done, use these actual numbers. It'd be really cool. You can throw these into an Excel spreadsheet, have Excel graph it for you if you'd like, if you know how to do that, okay? If not, no worries. Compare what you draw longhand with what's in the textbook, and you'll see that these cost curves exhibit the same basic shapes as the ones that are presented to you in chapter 7. So these cost curves will all have at the intro level the same basic shapes, okay? All right, so I'm gonna stop here. I think you have enough information now, enough helpful hints that you should be able to get through that homework. That homework that I just assigned, I think, is either due next Thursday or Friday. Check on Canvas, okay? If you do get stuck, if this was not enough, of course, you can always replay these videos, stop, rewind, fill these out multiple times. Additionally, if I talk too quickly, if you just can't relate to what I'm saying, try the other videos. Well, I would say try the other videos anyways. It's always good to hear it presented in different ways. Try the other instructors videos that I have posted, Mr. Clifford, Mr. Welker. Try those as well. Those videos, you'll see it, it'll get reinforced, you'll see it presented a slightly different way, it might click better with you. You know, we don't have egos, right? We don't care, however helps you to learn it best. That's why I post the videos, is like, hey, maybe you can't get it from just listening to me, but if you listen to it 3 times, you might be able to get it. Or maybe you really relate well to Mr. Clifford's videos, then stick with Mr. Clifford's videos. But since it's my homework, I'm thinking that you should at least listen to my lectures once, so that you hear all my helpful hints, right, that I give out along the way. So anyways, let me know if you still are struggling with production or cost. Reach out, visit my office hours, email me to set up Zoom office hours or Zoom meeting. If my office hours aren't convenient for you with your schedule, we can find an alternate time. I'm quarantined in my house, so, you know, got a lot more availability now that they've, you know, taken away all my sports from me. Anyways, so please reach out. I'm here to help, and good luck. And I appreciate how hard you guys are working. Well, we can do this as we're approaching the finish line, especially as we're approaching that second exam. Here's your chance to really up that score on that second exam from that first one, even, because you're getting more comfortable with the tools of economic analysis. I have every confidence in you guys that you will improve. All right, let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to end here so that you guys can get to work. I'm going to stop sharing. All right, talk to you later.